Are you familiar with the concept of a frap? Not a frappe, like a whipped iced beverage, but a frap, F-R-A-P. It's an acronym. I didn't grow up with pets. I did not have dogs when I was growing up, for example, but my partner Susan and I have a dog now. He's adorable. And when we first got our dog, when he was a puppy, he would act really strangely sometimes. Or, I mean, he would he would act in a way that would make me feel very strange. That would sort of weird me out. That seemed quite atypical for me, but admittedly I didn't know. Susan had dogs when she was growing up. She knows a lot about dogs. She was not at all surprised by what I saw as our puppy's wacky behavior when it happened. She told me it was no big deal, but it was strange. What he would do is, that's him in his Halloween costume when he was a puppy. What he would do is essentially he would just sort of tweak out. Everything would be fine. There'd be no strange external stimuli, no noises, no putting a hat on him like in this picture, no other people in hats, no oil smells, none of the things they say can scare puppies. Nothing like that. Everything would be otherwise normal. But then he would just tweak. He would get super hyper. He'd roll over on his back, then he'd flip over really fast, then he'd flip over again. He'd make crazy yipping noises. He would run in a circle over and over and over again, run randomly back and forth. He would just sort of get his tweak on. He would freak out for a little while, inexplicably, and then he'd be fine. It didn't last all that long. He never seemed upset by it. He was very happy. The whole thing was a positive thing. It would last maybe a minute or so, and then he'd be sort of out of breath and wide-eyed afterwards, but happy. This was an enjoyable thing for him. Apparently, this is what's known as a frap. It is a frenetic random activity period. It has a name. It is a thing that dogs do. Frenetic random activity period. It's a thing that dogs do, and it's apparently a thing that senators do as well. To me, at least, the frap, the frenetic random activity period, is the most cogent explanation I can come up with for what's happening right now in the United States Senate. Things are happening really fast and furious right now in Washington. And we know why that's true for one side of Washington. The Democrats have this big, long agenda they want to get passed. They've been trying to pass the tax cuts deal and a spending bill for the government and a repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the nukes treaty with Russia and the DREAM Act, the immigration bill, and the 9/11 first responders bill and judicial confirmations and an international trade bill and the new improvements to the GI bill. There's all this stuff that Democrats want to get done right now, all this stuff that's on their list that they want to move through. And that's why they are moving as fast as they possibly can in the Senate. Republicans are also moving as fast as they possibly can right now in the Senate. You can't go 5 minutes without some new indignant Republican Senate floor speech about something, or some new indignant Senate Republican press conference. The Senate is going as fast and furious as it can go right now. And among the Republicans, it is frenetic, it is activity, and I swear it is totally random. Here is a case in point. Here's what I need. Here's what I mean about this. The nukes treaty with Russia, right? This has been on the docket for 8 months now. There have been 1,000 Senate questions asked and answered about this. There have been 20 hearings about it. Probably half the Senate can read this treaty to you in their sleep. There is nothing at all out of left field about this. Randomly, though, in the lame duck period, Republicans decided that they wanted amendments. That nothing could happen on this until they had time for their very important amendments. They wanted to add amendments to the treaty. Kind of weird for a treaty, right? But okay. Democratic Senator John Kerry, who appeared on this show 2 nights ago, said essentially that even though that was kind of weird, if that's what Republicans needed in order to finally bring this thing to a vote, then sure, you want to debate amendments? We can debate amendments. Senator Kerry then went to the Senate floor and said, essentially, okay, I don't really know why you need more time on this, but you say you want this time for amendments. You're outraged that we would have a vote on this without you having time for your amendments? All right, I've got the floor time right now. Here's your time for amendments. Republicans, it turned out, did not have any amendments. Nothing ready to go, nothing written out, nothing to offer, nothing planned. Ultimately, today, a day later, John McCain finally figured out an amendment that he might want to try. Republicans insisted this could not be voted on. They could not vote on this treaty until they had time to offer their many and very important amendments. Then when they got the chance, kerplunk, won. And it took them a day to come up with it. Why did we have to have all that screaming and drama for one amendment the Democrats were happy to let be debated? Who knows? It's a frenetic random activity period. On judges, last night the United States Senate approved 4 of President Obama's judicial nominees. That itself is kind of a miracle. But here's the random part of this frenetic action. The Senate approved these judges unanimously, okay? These judges were also approved in the Judiciary Committee unanimously. Nobody voted against them. Every Republican and every Democrat voted for these judges. There is nothing controversial about these judges whatsoever. But between the first time they were voted on unanimously and last night when they were voted on unanimously, 6 months passed. 6 months. During which time no one had any objections to them being judges. Not a single vote against them, not a word against them, nothing. But 6 months of just, you can't do it. 6 months of nothing until now, last night, unanimous. Let them go through. Frenetic random activity period. The great meltdown in the Senate last night was over the big regular spending bill, the bill that Congress needs to pass to keep the government going. Despite the fact that they helped write it, despite the fact that they were intimately involved in the last-minute tweaks to it, despite the fact that some of them had already declared their support for it, last night, Republicans stood united against it. They did everything they could to obstruct it. They did everything they could to ultimately defeat this bill that they have been helping write for a year.
As the most junior member, for those who are not understanding what just happened, did we just win?
I think there's very little doubt.
6,000 earmarks will not now move forward.
Yes, and I feel badly about some of those earmarks because I had so much fun with them.
Republicans defeated their own bill. Woo! Full of their own earmarks. Woo! We really stuck it to them. We voted down our own thing we've been building. I don't know what's happening, but I feel great. It's fun. Did we win? Is this winning? Because it was sort of like losing because it was our own bill. Frenetic action. I feel out of breath. Yeah. Now we've ended up with the kind of legislative outcomes that one might expect from a frenetic random legislative activity period. Because Republicans defeated their own spending bill last night. The government runs out of money on Saturday, right? Congress today, in order to deal with that, today Congress voted to pass a stopgap spending bill. And they decided randomly that this stopgap spending bill would fund the government for 3 days. Now, nothing's going to be different after 3 days. When the funding of the government runs out again on Tuesday, we're going to be exactly where we are now. But heck, why not? 3 days, sure, woohoo, frenetic action, we're having a great time. Right now, the plan is that the Senate will be back in session over the weekend. They will be voting on 2 pieces of legislation that have majority support, that if they got an up or down vote, they would pass. But Republicans will not let them pass without a supermajority. Now, one of the things that they're going to vote on this weekend, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal, that's expected to come up on Saturday. It reportedly has enough votes to clear even the supermajority. But even though Republicans know it will pass if and when it comes to a vote, they're threatening all sorts of random frenetic action to just make it take longer than it might otherwise. Republican Senator Bob Corker saying today, randomly, that he and other Republicans might vote against the nukes treaty with Russia if Don't Ask, Don't Tell is brought up for a vote on Saturday. Why? Who knows? Not even his fellow Republicans seem to know.
There continues to swirl allegations that there is going to be a vote for or against because of another piece of legislation or for other reasons, for other political reasons. I reject that allegation.
What's Bob Corker talking about? Who knows? Random frenetic action. Totally unpredictable. That's what's random about it. It's also been floated that Republicans will just insist on a lot of hours of Senate time elapsing before the vote on Don't Ask, Don't Tell is allowed to happen. So even though it could be voted on as early as Saturday during the day, maybe even early on Saturday, if Republicans decide to randomly insist on lots of hours of Senate time elapsing before it gets voted on, the vote could be pushed to happen as late as on Monday. Now, will the elapsing of those hours make any difference in the vote? Probably not. But it will be exhausting. It will be fun. It will be frenetic, random activity. Voting against things you support killing your own bills, demagoguing your own earmarks in your own bills, making threats that you cannot live up to, making promises you cannot keep, running out the clock, doing nothing while insisting that time is short and what you really need is more time. Republicans are keeping themselves very, very busy right now. They are busy with frenetic, random legislative activity that, and this is the important point, that is unconnected to any policy goal. This is what happens when you do not see yourself as having any responsibility for policy. You don't see yourself as having any responsibility for getting stuff done for the country. And in combination with that lack of responsibility, you have the power to stop everybody else from getting stuff done too. My cute little puppy is now a giant full-grown dog. He's enormous. You could put a saddle on him. And if he engaged in frenetic random activity periods now, somebody would definitely get hurt. He does not do that anymore. He outgrew his frap phase. But this weekend, Washington, I'm telling you, is going to be fraptastic. It is totally unpredictable. A lot of the action will be random, and making sense of it will be something that you can do if you lie about what happened. If you're honest about what happened, you will admit that it is just activity for the sake of activity. Exactly what to expect, including when that don't ask, don't tell vote is going to happen and what might screw it up. That's next.